Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and I am here to introduce you to college admissions representatives and other professionals in the field of college admissions. Our purpose is to serve you, the students and parents, so that you may gain insight straight from the people who ultimately make the decisions. Regardless of whether you will apply to a particular school being highlighted, you should listen to all of the episodes, as each guest will give you tremendous insight and advice on every aspect of the college admissions process, prompting you to come up with your own follow-up questions for when you visit campus or meet with a college admissions representative yourself. Lastly, if you have any questions you'd like me to cover on future episodes or any comments you'd like to share, please email me at collegeadmissionstalk@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit our website at www.collegeadmissionstalk.com. So are you ready? Let's talk about it. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today to Kendall Halpern, who's a women's lacrosse player at Northwestern University. I had the great honor of knowing Kendall through her high school career. She was a three-sport athlete at Syosset High School in New York. So Kendall, so good to see you. Welcome. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
Great to see you. So let's get right to it. Why don't you start by telling us about yourself in terms of your lacrosse journey? How old were you when you started, Kendall? And at what point did you realize that you really enjoyed playing lacrosse?
Yeah, so I grew up playing multiple sports that I all really enjoyed and had to pick and choose. At a young age, I was invested in soccer and basketball. I was also actually a competitive gymnast up until the 7th grade. While also playing all these sports, I played on the local PAL Syosset lacrosse team for the first time when I was in about 4th grade as one of the more talented athletes on that field. I was guided and directed to a club lacrosse team, and that's when I joined Elevate Lacrosse in 6th grade. And then a few years later, in 9th grade, I verbally committed to play lacrosse at Northwestern University. But although I was committed to playing lacrosse in college, I continued to play soccer and basketball in high school. And after my time at Syosset High School, I'm now in Chicago at Northwestern, competing at the highest level of my sport.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that intro. And let me ask you, Kendall, was there a time, I know you committed in 9th grade, but was there a time when you realized, wow, I have a real shot of playing lacrosse in college? And if so, what was that time like? Did anything change for you in terms of how you approached the game?
Yeah, so really funny you asked that question because there was a very specific moment when this happened. At a fall tournament, summer after my 8th grade year, with my club team, the University of North Carolina coach came to watch me play, and I was like, wow, I really do have a shot of this. This is when I chose to grow my passion for lacrosse. Yeah, so my coaches just started to invest in me and my development because I became a prospect for my team. I wound up quitting gymnastics at that time, choosing between like travel basketball and travel soccer, and decided to play travel basketball. But from a lacrosse standpoint, it changed the regional teams I tried out for and the big tournaments I played in. And to get better here, I had to compete with the best and put myself on this platform that really grew my development as a player and athlete so I could be ready for the really high level.
Well, that's great insight. We appreciate that. And I'm really curious to know, how were you actually approached by the coaching staff from Northwestern? Was it at a local tournament? Any insight that you could give in that process would be truly appreciated.
Yeah, so in 2016, the rules for recruiting were very different than they are now. So, for insight, now you cannot commit or even directly communicate to a college coach before September 1st of your junior year. And I found out Northwestern first approached my coaches at a fall tournament on the East Coast. Um, the Northwestern coach, the head coach, communicated to me indirectly through my club coach, and this is how most of the communication happened. So, as my recruiting process developed, these conversations would involve me more, happening through emails and scheduled phone calls. As a 13, 14-year-old, I was very nervous about these phone calls. Some of them would almost be terrifying, but what the coach made it very, very, very communicative and very welcoming. I had no expectations at such a young age and had no idea where I really did want to go. But when I did start to explore Northwestern and communicate more with the coaches, and I had an idea that this was the place for me, the time the coaches really invested me, it really showed that this was the right place.
That's terrific. And how did your overall recruitment process go? Did you actually get to see the team in action, or were you invited to attend the practice before you had the opportunity to make a final decision?
Yeah, so my recruitment process, of course, was a bit different in terms of how early my process was. But before I committed, I went to a day at Northwestern about probably 2 or 3 months before my actual commitment. There, I got a tour of campus, see all the locker rooms and facilities. Also, growing up watching Northwestern lacrosse as a dynasty, winning national championship after national championship when I was younger, really led me to pursue the opportunity and even begin to explore. I verbally committed on November 4th, 2016, when I made my decision. So, fall of my freshman year of high school. And this process for me was fairly simple in the end and had a ton of help from my club coach to guide me. After my verbal commitment, I had many unofficial visits throughout high school, and actually during my junior year did have an official after I signed my national letter of intent, where I was able to spend time with the team and kind of build relationships with girls I'd be playing with in 2 years, which was really cool.
That's awesome. What do you think helped you get recruited the most? Was it your high school play, academy team, videos submitted to college coaches, or was it a combination of all of these things and more?
Yeah, so unlike a sport like basketball, lacrosse is a sport where most of the recruiting happened through your club team. Like I mentioned, the communication through your club coach was super important. When you attend all these tournaments, coaches kind of come together, watch you play at these showcases, most of which you kind of compete with your club team. And my performance at these tournaments is what these college coaches and recruiters saw. I also believe what helped me the most is really being a multi-dimensional athlete. Um, it's what helped me stand out from others. I think a lot of people love to specialize in sports today, and I'm a huge fan, as you know, of being a multi-sport athlete, and I think you could just learn so many lessons from the different aspects of that.
Well, that's awesome. What was your decision process, Kendall, like? And for example, did you have anyone that helped guide you through it? I know you mentioned your academy coach. Was there anyone else in addition to that person?
Yeah, so the weight of making these hard decisions that would impact me as now a 13, 14-year-old, I couldn't do all by myself, of course. I definitely needed guidance. All I knew about these schools is what I had heard, and that just wasn't enough to make the decision. So I didn't know much about all these schools. I was recruited by and needed more guidance. So my mom took me on most of these visits with me and was definitely my hand in hand for this process, not only guiding me but supporting every decision I made. And another really influential person in this process was my brother. At the same time, my brother was going through the process and just watching him. He was more mature than me, older than me. I gained a lot of insight. He was being recruited to go play basketball, and his thought process was similar to mine, picking a great academic institution, that would prepare me for what's beyond our sport.
Thank you for that insight. What was your overall draw to Northwestern, and what would you advise potential collegiate athletes to consider when trying to decide where to play?
Yeah, so when looking at a school, no matter the individual situation, playing a sport or not, it is really important to consider not where you're happiest now, but where you will be happiest when you are there. I believe a lot of students and athletes are drawn to schools with the biggest names, and I find a lot of my peers are unhappy when they make these decisions. But for me, the combination of athletics and academics was most important. And immediately, Northwestern was clear that this provided me a platform with a great alumni community. And I believe graduating from this university will bring me amazing career opportunities in the future. From a lacrosse standpoint, I was given this amazing opportunity to compete for a national championship, understaffed with great success, and to go play for one of the best coaches in the game is an unbelievable opportunity. Another thing that really stood out to me was the demographic of the team. One thing I loved about Northwestern lacrosse is the different places my teammates come from. Being part of such a dominant East Coast sport, that was something that was very cool and drew my attention because of how different states come together. And even we have girls from Canada, and I think that's awesome.
That is fantastic. What would you say to current student athletes, Kendall, in high school, in terms of what it takes to go to an elite Division I university to actually play lacrosse?
Yeah, being complacent with being great now does not always make you great in the future. That is one thing I think a lot of student athletes should kind of take in. Also, it does not matter how good you are, you have to continue to work hard and even harder. When you get to the big stage in college, everyone is good, was once the best, and the work for those people never stop. The players who become the best are never satisfied with how great they are. I think for those in high school, I would definitely say believe and trust in the process. Nowadays, it's very easy to get caught up and sucked into, social media. Uh, it's so important to not let outside sources dictate individuals' confidence and success, and I really value this. I think around my sport, the lacrosse media is kind of crazy, and I'm just shied away from that path. Lastly, I would say definitely prioritize your academics. College is hard and even harder for those choosing to become a student athlete. If you can get ahead of the game by learning to time manage and continue to succeed in school while also competing as an athlete, that is huge and kind of sets you up for a great platform taking a step into a collegiate setting.
Well, thank you for that, Kendall. Tremendous insight. We really appreciate it. What was the transition like from high school, where you were a star player, to then becoming a brand new student athlete at Northwestern, still a star player, but at a different level? Did you play much in your first year, and how different is your schedule and other demands compared to high school?
Yeah, so I'd start off by mentioning that my freshman year was 2020, 2021, so things did look a bit different. But from a lacrosse standpoint, I was nervous being a freshman, of course, on such a successful team. Coming on after COVID, that team lost a season. They wanted revenge. They had those relationships. But really, I think teams do a great job, and especially my team, they create this culture of just as a freshman, you come in, you're best friends with a senior, and that's awesome. I was a star in high school, but did not mean I was going to walk in and be the star here. I'm surrounded by the best in my sport. I had to show up to practice every single day for hours upon hours, working as hard as I could, knowing I had to compete and nothing was going to be handed out to me. In college, it does not matter how good you were or how highly ranked as a recruit you had been out of high school. It just matters like what you're doing in the present time now and how you're competing at practice. I was fortunate enough to earn a starting spot in defense toward the beginning of the season. Sometimes I showed up to practice, oh, I'm not going to play the next day. But what I did instead was just show up, compete as hard as I can, and when you do really work hard, people see that and the opportunity will come. But yeah, once you start playing, the demands of film, one-on-ones, team and individual meetings, and I think the biggest thing is recovery, are exponentially higher when you get to a collegiate level because of how much is going into competing at this stage. Showing up on game day isn't just about skill; it's about everything you put into it. The best team that prepares is the team that's going to win. So, those film sessions, and it's not like what you do in high school, your 20-minute film sessions before a practice. You have individual responsibilities that you may not do in a team setting, and you're just expected to do that stuff.
Well, that's great insight and great advice. Obviously, working really hard on the field, but off the field so that great things will come. So I love that insight. Thank you, Kendall. What does a typical day look like for a college student athlete at a Division I school? For example, how does the week differ when you have an away game as opposed to playing at home one week?
So I will tell you, the week is a bit busy. How about that? So on a typical training day, I wake up, go to class, thankfully in person, till around 12:30. I am immediately in my training room right after that, so between 12:15, 12:45, preparing my body for training. Like I said, this is super important. You just gotta provide time for this. Then I go to practice. After practice, straight into the weight room for lifts. So practice tends to be about 2.5 hours, depending on how light or heavy the day is, and then you have about an hour lift. The most important part comes right after, so where athletes have to do recovery. Recovery includes what you do at the facility, but also your nutrition and sleep. So definitely got to provide about 8 to 10 hours for that sleep. When I get out of recovery every day, it's about 6 p.m. And then our favorite place, we hit the library, of course. The schedule definitely alters when we have an away game. During the season, we do miss a lot of class. This gets hard, so balancing work with lacrosse gets a bit tougher. Before we go on an away trip, we try to get a lot of our work done before so we're prepared. And I think the most important thing for us is we've learned, and you kind of learn as you go. You make a mistake. Scheduling and planning ahead is super important. If you have an exam, you must tell the professor, or if you have an assignment due, try and start it and get ahead before you kind of leave for that away trip. We do have academic advisors that help balance and guide our scheduling needs. Super grateful for them. They are our go-to. They're amazing. So if we have a Friday game, for example, we're either flying or on the road Thursday morning. So we would miss Thursday, Friday class. But what's awesome about Northwestern is that professors are typically very flexible with our needs and really, really do help us along the way.
Well, that's great to know. What would you change, Kendall, if you had to go through the recruitment process again?
Yeah, so I really wouldn't change very much. I am very, very happy where I am. I couldn't be happier. I'm at Northwestern University, an amazing school in a great city, great demographics. To get this opportunity is an opportunity of a lifetime. I'm competing for a national championship this year, coming off a Big Ten championship, lost in the Final Four, looking to get revenge, and it's all I can ask for.
Well, that's fantastic, and you work really hard for it, and I'm so happy that you are there, and we wish you and Northwestern the best of luck this year as you chase that championship and that revenge.
Thank you.
Lastly, Kendall, what are the top 3 pieces of advice you would give a parent and student athlete aspiring to go through the recruitment process?
Yeah, so I would definitely say everything happens for a reason. Build off your failures. Also, if you're choosing to play a sport, attend a school that is investing in you not as just an athlete, but as a person. I think this is super important, and you are more than just an athlete. People that are investing in you in your academics, super important. I would say the most important thing is to keep your options open. I had no idea I would end up at Northwestern until I really explored the school and the program. Take a chance, and it could be the decision of a lifetime.
Well, those are great pieces of advice. Build off your failures. Pick a school that wants you not only for your athletic ability, but because they want you as the person, that they're going to provide you great academics in addition to great opportunities on the athletic field. And of course, keep your options open. Those are great pieces of advice, Kendall. Cannot thank you enough. So great to see you. So great to have this conversation with you. I wish you continued success, the best of luck, health, and happiness. Thank you so much for being here today on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the CAP.